You know that feeling, right? If you're a sailor, you definitely do. You're out there fighting for every single inch, but it feels like the competition just kicks into another gear when you're heading upwind. Well, what if I told you there's one specific training secret that really separates the good from the great? Today, we're going to unpack the single most effective tool for unlocking that upwind speed you've been searching for.
All right, so here's our game plan. First, we're going to dig into the surprising reason you might be falling behind. Then I'm going to introduce you to the one piece of gear that can change absolutely everything. After that, we'll dive into the nitty-gritty with 5 super powerful workouts. And finally, we'll wrap it all up with the mindset that really brings it all together.
So let's just jump right in with the big question. Why aren't you as fast as you know you could be? It's time to get to the real root of the problem. I mean, does this sound familiar? You get a pretty good start, you're in a decent lane, but then, slowly but surely, the boats around you just seem to pull away. You know, the sailor who inspired this explainer, Dan Self, he felt this exact same frustration. He actually had okay upwind speed, but he found that the really top sailors would just leave him in the dust. And he was doing a ton of cycling, so he figured, I'm fit enough. He just couldn't figure out how the top guys were that much faster. Until a training camp back in 2018 showed him the truth. And here it is. This was the real shocker. At that camp, they did a test on a hiking bench, and the results were just mind-blowing. It wasn't just a tiny fitness gap. The elite sailors could hold a maximum hike for 2, sometimes even 3 times longer than he could. That was a huge aha moment. Suddenly, it was crystal clear. All that general fitness from cycling, it just wasn't cutting it. The real missing piece was specific, dedicated hiking training. If you want to have elite speed on the water, you've got to have elite hiking endurance. Simple as that. So if dedicated hiking training is the answer, then what's the best way to actually do it? Well, that brings us to our central training tool, the hiking bench. Let's talk about the gear, how to set it up, and, most importantly, perfect form. First things first, you're going to need a bench. You've basically got 2 options here. You can build your own, which is a great, pretty cheap project, or you can buy a pre-made one. The nice thing about the pre-made ones is they're often portable, which is super handy if you travel for regattas. Now, once you have your bench, don't just hop on in your regular gym clothes. This part is so important. To really get the most out of this, you have to simulate race day. And that means always training in your hiking pads and your sailing boots. It makes a world of difference in how specific and effective the training is. Okay, and this is absolutely critical. Before you even think about starting these workouts, you have to nail down perfect form. That means shoulders back, glutes squeezed tight, core totally engaged, and knees pushing down and in. Oh, and don't forget to point your toes. Seriously, I can't stress this enough. Bad technique will, sooner or later, lead to injury. All right, you've got your gear, you've mastered the form. Now for the fun part, the actual workouts. Here are 5 proven routines that are basically your blueprint for building some serious hiking endurance. So, routine number 1 is a fantastic way to build a really solid base. It's called the countdown, and the whole point of this one is to maintain that perfect technique we just talked about for the entire time. It's a pretty simple descending ladder. You're going to hike for 5 minutes, then you rest for 1. Then you hike for 4 minutes, rest for 1. You just keep that pattern going all the way down until you're at 1 minute of hiking. It's tough for sure, but man, is it effective. Next up, we've got 2 routines that are all about building raw power. These are your power intervals, and they're designed to really push your limits, but at different levels of intensity. Okay, so the key thing to pay attention to here is the intensity. For routine number 2, you're doing 10 sets of 2-minute hikes at about 80% of your max effort with 1 minute of rest between each one. Then, for routine number 3, you shorten the hike to just 1 minute, but you crank that intensity way up to a blistering 90% of your max. Now, once you've built up a really solid foundation, it's time to level up with some weighted hiking. This is how you really overload your muscles to build that next level strength. You can do this just by holding a weight plate on your chest, or if you want a serious challenge, extend it out over your head. But let me be perfectly clear, because you're adding all this extra load to your body, perfect technique becomes absolutely non-negotiable. Do not risk getting injured. And our final routine is all about making your strength more, well, functional for what you actually do on the boat. This is dynamic hiking, where you start adding movement to simulate what really happens out on the water. So while you're holding your hike, you can start doing things like sit-ups or alternating touching each shoulder to the ground. You can even simulate sailing through waves just by rocking your shoulders back and forth. This builds a core that isn't just strong, it's ready to race. So now you have the tools, you've got the workouts,
But honestly, none of that stuff matters without this last piece of the puzzle. This right here is the most important part, the real path to getting faster. So what's the magic number? 3. That's your target, that's your goal. You really need to be on that hiking bench at least 3 times a week, and the best way to do it is to just alternate between the 5 routines we just went over. And here's a little pro tip. If you have a light wind week where you're not sailing much, use that extra time to get in more bench sessions to keep your training load high. And really, this is the bottom line. You can have the best gear in the world and the most perfect workout plan, but the single most important thing, the thing that makes all the difference, is consistency. Just showing up day in and day out, week after week. That's what creates real lasting change. And you have to be aware of this trap. It is so easy, after a windy weekend of sailing, to tell yourself, oh, I did plenty of hiking on the water, I can skip the bench this week. But that is exactly how progress dies. Missing those sessions completely kills your momentum and just makes it so much easier to give up altogether. So, there you have it. The weakness, the tool, the workouts, and the mindset. This is the exact formula for getting faster upwind. The only question left is, when are you going to start?